The room was small, concrete walls, folding chairs in rows. Hong Kong, summer of 1971. Maybe 60 people inside. Theater owners, distributors, a few critics. The heat sat thick, no air conditioning, shirts stuck to backs. Bruce Lee walked in through a side door. Black slacks, fitted shirt, hair combed back. He didn't smile, didn't introduce himself, just stood in the center and waited until the murmuring stopped. Then he moved. Not a full demonstration, just a shift, a pivot. A strike that stopped an inch from the wall, fast enough that two people flinched, controlled enough that it felt like a held breath. No one clapped. They watched. He'd been back in Hong Kong 3 months. Hollywood had passed, gave his show to someone else, someone who looked the part they wanted. Years in Los Angeles pitching to rooms that went silent when he walked in. Now he was here, filming a movie no American studio wanted. The people in that room didn't know what was coming. Neither did he. He'd been teaching in Oakland when Hollywood noticed. 1964, Jun Fan Gong Fu to whoever showed up. His reputation traveled through gyms. Fast, technical, willing to fight anyone who asked. Then actors came. They wanted an edge, a way to move on camera that looked real. He taught them privately how to make a punch devastating without landing it, how to hold tension in stillness. They paid well, thanked him, never mentioned his name. He got small roles. The Green Hornet, Kato. He moved too well. Producers asked him to slow down, said cameras couldn't catch him. The show lasted 1 season, but people remembered Kato. Letters came asking about the Asian guy who moved like that. The network didn't know what to do with it. By 1969, he had students across Los Angeles. Steve McQueen, James Coburn, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They came to his garage, trained for hours. He pushed them. They respected him. But Hollywood saw him as a teacher, not a star. He started writing, developing concepts. One caught him, a Shaolin monk, trained in philosophy and combat, wandering the American West. 1870s, post-Civil War, a stranger who doesn't look for trouble but knows how to end it. He pitched it everywhere. Warner Brothers showed interest, real interest. They wanted to develop it. For months, he thought it was happening. Linda was pregnant with their second child. They bought a house. He trained harder, prepared for the role that would change everything. Then casting conversations started. They needed someone with television experience, someone audiences knew, someone the word marketable came up who fit what networks wanted. His English was perfect, but there was something, a slight rhythm. Network executives noticed. They worried about Middle America, about whether viewers would accept an Asian lead. They cast David Carradine, an actor, not a martial artist, someone who'd learn movements later. Lee found out through his agent. No phone call from Warner Brothers, just done. He went home, told Linda. She watched his face. Not anger, just recognition. Like he'd expected this but hoped otherwise. For weeks he trained until midnight, pushed students harder, physical exertion as processing. Then Raymond Chow called from Hong Kong. Chow ran Golden Harvest, smaller studio competing with Shaw Brothers. He'd seen Lee's screen test, seen how cameras followed him. One film, low budget, revenge story set in Thailand. The big boss, nothing prestigious, just a chance. Lee asked about distribution. Chow was honest, regional, Southeast Asia, maybe Japan. America wasn't part of the plan. Lee told Linda he was going back to Hong Kong. She asked if he was sure. He said he wasn't walking away from Hollywood. He was going around it. June 1971. He landed in Hong Kong. The heat hit immediately. The Cantonese everywhere, a language he understood but didn't belong to anymore. His mother still lived there, his siblings. But he'd been gone since 18. He was starting over, at 30, with a family in Los Angeles, with a concept stolen and a door closed. The script for The Big Boss was thin. Man arrives in Thailand, promises his mother he won't fight, watches co-workers disappear, discovers factory smuggling drugs, breaks promise. Lee read it on the plane, wasn't impressed, but saw the space, room to show what Hollywood hadn't let him show. Filming started in July. Small crew, tight budget, Thailand location. The heat was worse than Hong Kong. The director, Lo Wei, knew Shaw Brothers' formula. Wide shots, the theatrical blocking, clean choreography. Lee pushed back immediately. He wanted cameras closer, wanted audiences to feel impact, wanted fights that looked like consequences, not performance. They argued. Lo Wei had final cut. Lee had conviction and no leverage. But when footage came back, Raymond Cho saw the difference. Scenes Lo Wei directed looked competent. Scenes Lee influenced looked dangerous. Chow told Lo Wei to give Lee more freedom. Lo Wei resented it but complied. The factory fight took 3 days. Lee choreographed every move, trained stuntmen, showed them how to make it real. By August, they had a rough cut, unfinished, but complete enough to show. Chow arranged the screening, the concrete room, folding chairs, a projector on a table. He invited distributors, theater owners, critics. Most came out of courtesy. Golden Harvest was small. A film from them was a risk. Lee arrived early, watched people file in, heard them talking. Polite, professional, not expecting much. Chow introduced the film briefly. Then lights dimmed. The first scene played. Lee's character arriving. Quiet, promising his mother he won't fight. The room stayed casual. A few people checked watches. Then the first confrontation. Lee's character watching a coworker beaten, holding back, fists clenching, camera close enough to see the restraint. Someone leaned forward. Tension built. More co-workers disappearing. More injustice. Lee's character reaching the edge. Then the factory fight. It started fast. No warning. Just Lee's character finally moving. The room went silent. Not polite silence. Focused silence. Lee moved through the frame like violence compressed. A kick didn't just land, it ended something. The camera stayed close. 90 seconds. But it felt longer. Felt earned. When it ended, no one clapped. They absorbed it. Credits rolled. Lights up. For 5 seconds, no one moved. Then a distributor turned to his partner. Said something in Cantonese. Another theater owner made a note. Chow stood. Asked, how many prints? The silence broke. People negotiating. Theater owners naming numbers. Within 20 minutes, the Big Boss had distribution across Southeast Asia. Lee watched from the side. Didn't smile. Just nodded once. Then left through the same door. Outside, Hong Kong heat pressed down. He stood there, let reality settle. This was the beginning. The Big Boss opened October 31st, 1971. Thursday. 23 theaters. Raymond Chow hoped for decent numbers, enough to break even. By Friday afternoon, lines wrapped city blocks. Not queues, crowds. People who'd heard from Thursday viewers. Factory workers, students, families. They packed theaters past capacity. The film wasn't subtle. A man pushed until he couldn't be pushed. When he finally moved, the screen couldn't contain it. Lee's character spent most of the runtime holding back, watching friends disappear, watching injustice compound. Tension built in his stillness, in how his hands flexed. When the factory fight came, theaters went silent. Some flinched at impacts. Afterwards, everyone exhaled together. By Sunday, midnight showings started. By Tuesday, Golden Harvest printed more copies. By week's end, the big boss broke every Hong Kong opening record. Chow called Lee Tuesday morning, gave him numbers, told him they were expanding. Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia. Lee asked about a second film. Chow said pre-production was underway. Reviews came slower. Critics didn't know how to categorize it. Some praised action. Some dismissed the plot. Some called it violent. Audiences didn't wait for critics. They came back, brought friends. Taiwan, November. Same result. Singapore, highest-grossing film of the year within 3 weeks. Thailand, cultural event. Kids mimicked moves in schoolyards. America wasn't paying attention. Warner Brothers was busy with Kung Fu, set to premiere October 1972. Network was confident. David Carradine looked good. Test screenings went well. No one thought about Bruce Lee. Lee wasn't thinking about them. He was filming Fist of Fury. Bigger budget, more control. Story set in 1900s Shanghai. Chinese students, Japanese occupation. National humiliation. A student who refuses to accept it. Tighter script than The Big Boss. More emotional weight. Fights more complex. Lee choreographed sequences taking 2 weeks to shoot. Fist of Fury released March 22, 1972. Didn't just break records, shattered them. Made more first week than most films made entirely. Lee's face everywhere. Posters, magazine covers, interviews. He'd become Asia's biggest star in 6 months. Then cables started arriving at Warner Brothers. Asian offices sent reports, box office numbers that didn't make sense. A Hong Kong actor, wait, wasn't he American? Making more than most Hollywood productions. An executive requested prints. They screened in Burbank, watched in silence, saw what that concrete room had seen. After Fist of Fury ended, one executive asked, "Isn't that the guy who pitched the Monk show?" Someone checked. Confirmed. Bruce Lee. The Green Hornet. The one they'd passed on for Kung Fu. Another executive asked about American distribution rights. A third asked the question no one wanted to say, "Did we make a mistake?" The room didn't answer, but someone started making calls. The meeting was August 1972. Honolulu. Neutral ground. Lee flew from Hong Kong, told Raymond Chow not to expect much. Hollywood had a way of making offers that evaporated. Warner Brothers sent 2 executives. They met in a hotel conference room. Ocean through windows. The executives were friendly, talked about the Asian market, how impressed they were, how they'd love to bring that energy to American audiences. They had contracts ready, distribution deals for both films, American releases, marketing budgets. They mentioned Kung Fu casually, said it was doing well in development, said nothing that acknowledged whose concept it had been. Lee listened, didn't interrupt. When they finished, he asked, "What changed?" They talked about market research, shifting demographics, international cinema becoming viable, how audiences were ready now. Lee nodded, didn't point out audiences had always been ready. Networks hadn't been. Then he gave his terms. New film. Co-production. Golden Harvest and Warner Brothers. Shot in Hong Kong. His crew. His director. Full creative control. Final cut. His name above title. Back-end percentage reflecting what he'd built without them. The executives shifted. Said some was reasonable. Some would need approval. Some was unprecedented. Lee stood. Said he had another film to prep. Said they could call when they had a real offer. Back in Hong Kong by weekend. Chow asked how it went. Lee said they'd call back. Chow asked if he was sure. Lee said Warner Brothers didn't fly executives to Hawaii just to say no. 2 weeks later, the call came. They agreed to most terms, wanted script approval. Lee refused. They countered consultation. He said they could see it when done, distribute or not. Their choice. Another week. They agreed. Deal closed, September 1972. Warner Brothers would co-produce and distribute his next film, Enter the Dragon. Budget: $850,000. Massive by Hong Kong standards. Lee would star. Choreograph all action. Input on casting, editing, music. Everything Hollywood refused 3 years earlier. Now handed over. Not from generosity. From necessity. Kung Fu premiered October 1972. Strong ratings. Carradine was good. The show became a hit. Executives congratulated themselves, but Lee was building something different. Enter the Dragon started filming January 1973. International cast: John Saxon, Jim Kelly, bigger sets. A tournament on a private island, thin plot, Lee filled with philosophy. He worked 18-hour days. Trained actors who'd never thrown a punch, fought with director Robert Klaus. Klaus wanted traditional coverage. Lee wanted intimacy. They compromised. Both were right. By March, rough cut, Warner Brothers executives flew to Hong Kong, screened it, watched in silence. Not perfect. Script thin. Some performances wooden. But Lee moved through it like proving something. When lights came up, this is going to be big. August 1973 release strategy. Wide release. Major marketing. Position it as action event. Lee was in editing. Adjusting frames. Tightening sequences. He finished May. Delivered final cut. Then waited. But he never saw it in American theaters. July 20, 1973. Bruce Lee collapsed at home. Cerebral edema. Brain swelling. The hospital couldn't stabilize him. He died that afternoon. 32 years old. News spread fast. Hong Kong. Asia. America. Raymond Chow stood in his office, didn't know what to do. Funeral, July 25. Over 25,000 people lined streets. No one organized it. They just came. Factory workers, students, families. The procession moved through Kowloon. His brother Robert walked behind the hearse. Linda beside him. Their children, Brandon, 8, Shannon, 4, too young to understand. James Coburn flew from Los Angeles. Steve McQueen, others who'd trained in Lee's garage. Second funeral in Seattle. Smaller, quieter. Buried at Lakeview Cemetery. Simple headstone. His name. His dates. Enter the Dragon, scheduled to release 3 weeks later. Warner Brothers didn't know how to proceed. They'd planned a press tour. Now they had a film with a dead star. They used old footage, interviews from production, demonstrations, cut together TV spots that felt like memorials. Film opened August 19, 1973. Over 500 theaters, sold out immediately. People came expecting action, got something else. A presence that didn't need dialogue, physicality that made other stars look slow, confidence that read as charisma. Critics compared him to McQueen, to Eastwood, but comparisons didn't fit. He was creating a template that hadn't existed. Box office climbed. By fourth week highest grossing film Warner Brothers released that year. International release. Europe, South America, Japan. Over $200 million worldwide. Hollywood noticed. Every studio wanted martial arts content. Hired actors. Martial artists. Made dozens of films trying to replicate it. Most failed. A few succeeded commercially. None had the same impact. Kung Fu ran until 1975. 73 episodes, won awards. Carradine became a household name. Successful by every television metric. But it faded. Syndication kept it alive. Cable brought it back occasionally. Ask someone to quote Kung Fu. Most can't. Ask about Bruce Lee. They remember scenes, remember movements. Warner Brothers re-released Enter the Dragon. 80s, 90s, 2000s. Each time, new audiences. Each time, new audiences. Each time, numbers held. The Big Boss and Fist of Fury got American distribution posthumously. Art house theaters, grindhouses, television, home video. Hong Kong erected a statue. Avenue of Stars. Tourists photograph it. Locals walk past. Part of the city's identity, martial arts schools advertised his name. Jeet Kune Do became sought after. Students who'd trained with him briefly became masters by association. Documentaries made. Books written. Death analyzed. Conspiracy theories. Mob. Curse. Poisoning. Most accepted medical explanation. But sudden endings feel insufficient. Linda published his writings, philosophical notes, training methods. People discovered he'd thought deeply about efficiency, about water be formless, shapeless. His daughter Shannon became an actress. Died at 28. On set, prop gun. Coincidence felt cruel. But films remained. Each generation discovered them new. The concrete room in Hong Kong is gone. Torn down. Something else built there. No plaque marks it, but that screening in summer 1971 was the moment. When people with money saw something unexpected, made calculations that changed trajectories. Bruce Lee never saw the full arc, never knew Enter the Dragon would become iconic, never knew his face would become globally recognizable. He just knew Hollywood said no. Hong Kong said yes. Sometimes the path forward isn't straight. Warner Brothers ran Kung Fu 3 seasons. Successful, well-regarded. Did what television does, entertained, then receded into the catalog. Enter the Dragon still plays. Still gets studied. Still gets referenced. Not because it's perfect. Script is thin. Some acting stiff. But Lee moved through it like proving something. And he was. Proving executives who'd passed had miscalculated, that audiences didn't need familiar faces if presence was strong. That action could be more than spectacle. Some felt inspired. The idea that rejection isn't final. Other paths exist, the long way around sometimes works. Others felt unsettled, wondered how many voices get dismissed. Not for lacking talent, but for not fitting the image someone decided on before the conversation started. Both reactions stayed with people. The film stayed too.